Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girvardhari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girvardhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Manachari Yamunatira Manachari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girvardhari Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So today we're reading Srimad Bhagavatam, the first canto, chapter 7, and it is verse 5. Those of you who have reference, please. Yaya Samohita Jivan Atmanam Trigunatmakam Varopi Manute Nartam Tatkritam Chabipajate Yaya Samohita Jiva Atmanam Trigunatmakam Varopi Manute Nartam Tatkritam Chabipajate Yaya Samohita Jiva Atmanam Trunatmakam Varopi Manute Nartam Tatkritam Chabipajate. Someone else.
Yaya sammohito jiva atmanam triguణాత్మకం karopi manute sartham tatkritam chavipadyate.
If there's anybody online, please proceed. If nobody can hear me, no harm.
No, yes, we can hear you, Master. So is it, sorry, is it text 5?
It's 5, yes. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much. Yaya samohito jiva yatmanam trigunatmakam varopi manute nartam takritam avipadyate.
Thank you.
Okay, I can do that, Mataji. Yaya samito jiva atmanam trigunatam paropi manatanatam tatkatram chabi padyate. Hare Krishna.
Yaya sammohito jiva atmanam triguణాత్మకం karopi imanyate natam tatritam cha vipadyate.
Thank you very much. So we'll look at the word for word, unless there's someone else. Did they hear Jagovinda's chanting? Could you hear?
Yes, we did.
Okay, thank you. So there's communication. Appreciate it. So yaya, by whom? Samoitaha, illusions. Jivaha, the living entities. Atmana, self. Triguna atmakam, conditioned by the three modes of nature or a product of matter. Paraha, transcendental. Api, in spite of. Manute, takes it for granted. Anartam, things not wanted. Tat, by that. Kritamcha, reaction. Avipadyate, undergoes thereof. Prabhupada's translations. Due to this external energy, the living entity, although transcendental to the three modes of material nature, thinks of himself as a material product and thus undergoes the reactions of material miseries. Due to this external energy, the living entity, although transcendental to the three modes of material nature, thinks of himself as a material product and thus undergoes the reactions of material miseries. So Prabhupada's purport is very, very long. There is a chance that I'll make a few footnotes as we go along. Purport. The root cause of suffering by the materialistic living beings is pointed out with remedial measures which are to be undertaken and also the ultimate perfection to be gained. All this is mentioned in this particular verse. Can you see? It's very complete, very complete. The living being is by constitution transcendental to material engagement, but he is now imprisoned by the external energy, and therefore he thinks himself one of the material products. And due to this unholy contact, the pure spiritual entity suffers material miseries under the modes of material nature. The living entity misunderstands himself to be a material product. This means that the present perverted way of thinking, feeling, and willing under material conditions is not natural for him, but he has his normal way of thinking, feeling, and willing. I want you to pay attention to this particular. He has his normal way. The living being in his original state is not without thinking, feeling, and willing power. Underline that. It is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita that the actual knowledge of the conditioned soul is now covered by nescience. Thus, the theory that a living being is absolutely impersonal Brahman is refuted herein. This cannot be, because the living entity has its own way of thinking in its original unconditioned state also. The present conditional state is due to the influence of the external energy, which means that the illusory energy takes the initiative while the Supreme Lord is aloof. The Lord does not desire that a living being be illusioned by external energy. The external energy is aware of this fact, but still she accepts the thankless task of keeping the forgotten soul under illusion by her bewildering influence. Please notice the feminine reference to her, not him or his. I want you to pay attention to Prakriti. So it's feminine, but it's interesting that Prabhupada is speaking like this. Because he's talking about all the living entities is him and his. There's never a feminine. But talking about Mahamaya, he's talking about her in feminine. Very, very important. An affectionate father does not like his children to be, the Lord, sorry. The Lord does not interfere with the task of the illusory energy, because such performances of the illusory energy are also necessary for reformation of the conditioned soul. An affectionate father does not like his children to be chastised by another agent, yet He puts his disobedient children under the custody of a severe man just to bring him to order. But the all-affectionate Almighty Father at the same time desires relief for the conditioned soul, relief from the clutches of the illusory energy. The king puts the disobedient citizens within the wall of the jail, but sometimes the king, desiring the prisoners' relief, personally goes there and pleads for reformation, and on his doing so the prisoners are set free. Similarly, the Supreme Lord descends from his kingdom upon the kingdom of illusory energy and personally gives relief in form of Bhagavad Gita, when he personally suggests that although the ways of illusory energy are very stiff to overcome, one surrenders unto the lotus feet of the Lord is set free by the order of the Supreme. This surrendering process is a remedial measure for getting relief from the bewildering waves of illusory energy. The surrendering process is completed by the influence of association. The Lord has suggested, therefore, that by the influence of the speeches of saintly persons who have actually realized the Supreme, men are engaged in his transcendental loving service. The conditioned soul gets a taste for hearing about the Lord, and by such hearing only, he or she is gradually elevated to the platform of respect, devotion, and attachment for the Lord. The whole thing is completed by the surrendering process. Herein also the same suggestion is made by the Lord in his incarnation of Yaldabaoth. This means that the conditioned souls are being reclaimed by the Lord both ways, namely by the process of punishment, by the external energy of the Lord, and by himself as the spiritual master within and without. Very important part, both ways. Within the heart of every living being, the Lord himself, the super soul, Paramatma, becomes the spiritual master. And from without, he becomes the spiritual master in the shape of scriptures, saints, and the initiatory spiritual master. This is still more explicitly explained in the next shloka. Personal superintendence of the illusory energy is confirmed in the Vedas, Kena Upanishad, in relation to the demigod's controlling power. Herein also it is clearly stated that the living entity is controlled by the external energy in a personal capacity. The living being thus subjects to the control of external energy is differently situated. It is clear, however, from the 10th statement of Bhagavatam that the same external energy is situated in the inferior position before the personality of Godhead or the perfect being. The perfect being, or the Lord, cannot be approached even by the illusory energy, who can only work on the living entities. Therefore, it is sheer imagination that the Supreme Lord is illusioned by the illusory energy and thus becomes the living being. If the living being and the Lord were in the same category, then it would have been quite possible for Vyas to see it. And there would have been no question of material distress on part of the illusion being, for the Supreme Being is fully cognizant. So there are so many unscrupulous imaginations on the part of the monists to endeavor to put both the Lord and the living being in the same category. Had the Lord and the living being been the same, then Srila Shuka Goswami would not have taken the trouble to describe the transcendental pastimes of the Lord, for that would all be manifestations of illusory energy. Srimad Bhagavatam is a sine qua non remedy for suffering humanity in the clutches of Maya. Srila Vyasadeva, therefore, first of all, diagnosed the actual disease of the living souls, i.e. their being illusioned by the external energy. He also saw the Supreme Being from which illusory energy is far removed, though he saw both the diseased conditioned souls and also the cause of the disease. And the remedial measures are suggested in the next verse. Both the Supreme Personality of God and the living beings are undoubtedly qualitatively one. For the Lord is the controller of the illusory energy, where the living entity is controlled by the illusory energy. Thus the Lord and the living beings are simultaneously one and different. Another point is distinct herein, that eternal relation between the Lord and the living being is transcendental. Otherwise the Lord would not have taken the trouble to reclaim the conditioned souls from the clutches of Maya. In the same way, the living entity is also required to revive his natural love and affection for the Lord. And that is the highest perfection of the living entity. Srimad Bhagavatam treats the conditioned soul with an aim to that goal of life. We'll read the verse again. Yaya samohita jiva atmanam trigunatmakam aropi manute nattam samkritam shabhatyate. Due to his external energy, the living entity, although transcendental to the three modes of material nature, thinks of himself as a material product and thus undergoes the reaction of material movement. So you can see that Srila Prabhupada in this particular verse, still at the very beginning of the Srimad Bhagavatam, only chapter 7, of course, it's not that Vyas spoken in chapters, made into chapters. So Prabhupada gives a very extensive purport to explain what is the position of the living entity. And when you look at it, it's quite optimistic. And why is it optimistic? Because one or two verses earlier, it says that Vyas sat in meditation, his mind was calm, and he saw the Purusha Purnam. That's how it's described. And simultaneously he saw the external energy. So he saw both. So a small footnote I want to make, which is very interesting. Just previously, months or so ago, we read about Narada Muni having a vision of the Supreme Lord. And immediately tells you how he felt, his bodily hair standing on end, ecstasy, etc. And here again we have the same. There is zero explanation of what is that God, what does that God look like, what happened. There's zero. There's only Purusha Purnam, only a very faint reference. Now, isn't that interesting? I commented on it before and will comment on it again. Now, why is that? It is because at the stage at which the audience is at cannot understand it anyhow. So you can give a description of God, which form of Krishna is given you. Krishna in a yellow dhoti, Krishna with a face covered with dust, or some form of Vishnu, or any of the 10 incarnations, or a vision of the Lord as Paramatma. Can you see it? So it's not, there's no footnote. There's only very slight reference. And it's very significant because we're not focusing on God, especially here in this purport. We're not focusing on God. We're focusing on the traumatic position of the living entity who has become illusioned by Maya. And that is the thing. This morning I was writing something about illusion. Illusion means that you accept one thing for being something else. Like yesterday, somebody's given a class, we were talking about Maya, and I was saying, Mahamaya is like the shadow. It does reference the absolute, but in a way that is very, very abstract, just like we see a shadow on the pole here is just a line, very faint, on the marble. I don't know if I'm reading the shadow, if I'm reading about the marble, or whatever I'm reading, or my poor vision that's, double-sided or whatever. So, yeah, again, the shadow is two-dimensional. That's a very good point. Shadow is two-dimensional and it falls down and it references a three-dimensional object. Generally, it could be also a piece of paper, but still an object in the three-dimensional realm. It's a very good point. So the dimension is going down. And the dimension is going up. How do you like that for a joke? So the dimension is going up and the dimension is going down. This is the whole point. Is the illusory nature where one mistakes that which is matter for something divine, something spiritual, but you mistake sukham for dukkam. You think, I'm very happy. I'm very happy even though there's birth, death, old age, and disease. So in a way, that is good, because if you're happy, it means generally you're in a mode of goodness. And you're in a mode of goodness, then you start asking, okay, I'm happy, but I'm going to die, and everybody will be crying. How is that real happiness? So then you search for that higher happiness. And the higher happiness, of course, is the word I always use. What comes after three? Three. Well, four. So the Turiya, so the fourth dimension. So again, I looked it up today. It's interesting. Every time I look it up, I seem to get a different sources from database. Sometimes there's more. Because the Turiya can be spelled in two ways. Turiya, Turya, or Turiya with an I. So you have to look up both to get all the references. Because most of the references are in the 11th canto, Krishna is speaking to Buddha. So, but it means four. Four is the fourth state of consciousness. When you are in goodness and you begin to inquire as to what is real, what is actual, what should I pursue, besides money or goodness or charity or whatever, what is the actual goal of life? Then you are being directed to that which is non-material, which is transcendental. So this is not only, obviously, in our religion, this is in every religion. Every actual religion has has concept of transcendence and its methodology to go there. So I was thinking this morning that quite a long time before I joined the Hare Krishna movement, I was very acutely aware of that concept of the fourth dimension. And some of the two writers, if you don't mind referencing some mundane writers, but they were Gurdjieff and Ouspensky. They were both the Russian writers, and especially the latter that I was attracted to, who wrote a book on the fourth dimension, a very large book, and is describing exactly what it is, or concept of it. And I was researching this morning again, how did they access that information? So Gurdjieff, which was his teacher, spent time in a Buddhist, what do you call it? In a Buddhist monastery, a Tibetan. That's what I want to say, a Tibetan Buddhist monastery, and they were aware of the Tibetan Book of the Dead and so on. So Gurdjieff gave that information to Ouspensky, and I was a very close follower of him, and I was very much aware of that. So when we came to ISKCON, and we were made alert to that, and the first time I heard that word, I felt very happy. I thought, yes, that is exactly the language of which I'm already familiar, at least 10 years before I joined the movement. So my point is that there are accesses to the truth in every line, not just Gaudiya Vaishnavism and everything, some split group, hair splitting group doesn't have access. The access is there. Any concept of God as a transcendental deity, goes without saying, promotes you to inquire about Koham, who am I really? Who am I really? What is my actual status? And of course, then we are beginning to understand also quantum physics, and so has emphasized it, that I am actually a quanta of consciousness. I am consciousness. So I mentioned it so many times, but the theist, they say that consciousness is an epiphenomenon of matter. And we say that matter is an epiphenomenon of consciousness. It's the same language, but it's turned around. And this is exactly what is explained here. That Vyasa Purnam Purush, or Purush Purnam, and he saw the material energy. And that's why it's being outlined here. Like, why don't we start talking about God now and Vaikuntha and below? It's not after all. We have to learn this, because for which audience is he speaking? It's for an audience who is trapped in the world of matter. This is Bhumi Loka. Bhumi Loka. This is Prithivi. This is, what you say, Terra Mata. This is Terra Mata. This is the material world. So Prabhupada unpacks it in very great detail, and in a very, what I liked, especially the first note he makes, that our position is given, position is trapped. How come we are trapped, and what is the solution to becoming untrapped. All of this Prabhupada gives in the first paragraph. He says this is in the verse. So, and of course, the last verse already gave it. Bhakti Yogena Manasi Samyak Praniyate Amale Apashat Purisham Punam. There we are. Mayam Chatat Apashayam. And this is why I was commenting on that Purusham Punam. He saw the complete person with his energy from the point of view that he was seeing it, i.e. Vyas. He just came out of despondency. He was educated by our friend Nara, and he is becoming enlightened. And then he says he's conceived the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's very amazing. There's no long exposition of how this is so. But because he had the darshan, he was able to give it. This is also why we're going back again to the first canto. We had a discussion maybe a year ago. So we go into the 10th canto, Krishna's pastimes, etc. And there was a discussion by some of the management here. And they also consulted me. Should we go back to the Srimad Bhagavatam, the first canto? And even though I have a few footnotes, it's so important that we understand these elementary things if you want to understand the 10th canto, because it's so elevated, because Krishna acts like an ordinary person, dancing, doing, staying out all night with married women. He said, not his wives, these are somebody else's wives. So on and on and on. So this is very complex. But when we start here, we can begin to understand what is the relationship between matter and spirit. And we can see they're very closely intertwined. Because let's say we are in a world of, let's say, samsara, we're in a world of matter. But we can see the spiritual world from this point of view. We don't even have to go to Vrindavan. Although I read a quote yesterday by Bhakti Siddhanta. He was talking about the 12 relationships we have with Krishna, with the Supreme. And he says we can go to the 12 forests of Vrindavan and become enlightened. Just didn't research it further. But we can go to Vrindavan and become enlightened. But we can also bring Vrindavan here, and which is our point. He said, New Gokula Dham. This is Gokula itself. The deities there. Deities are there. Krishna is there. Prabhupada is there. Devotees are there. Now look at this temple. Outrageously beautiful. Isn't that beautiful? I brought a friend here once who's not a devotee whatsoever. And he came in. He was a bodybuilder. Came in quite a few years ago. And immediately started dancing. There was no program going on. But he started dancing in ecstasy. He couldn't believe that he came to such a beautiful place. Couldn't believe it. Because it's very intimately constructed. So I made a few footnotes on all the words in the verse. Some of them, just a little bit to unpack. Where are we? Okay, sammohita is a very interesting word, because what does mohan mean? What is it? No, bewilderment. No, not attachment. It means bewilderment. And some meaning everything. So sammohita. This world of matter is strictly all bewildering. Sammohita, jiva. Jiva means the living entity, one who is breathing. Jiva means to breathe. So those living entities that are coming here are completely bewildered by yaya. By whom? By that which, even though they are Atman, even though they're Atman, they're three guna makam, they're overcome by the other self, the false self of the three modes of material nature. Paravapi, but at the same time, manute, let's see how it's translated here again. One takes it for granted that things are what they appear to be. Like, how come most people don't question where they are? Millions of people, they're strolling on the street. They don't even say, who am I really? They don't research. They're just working about money and concerned about absolutely material things. They, of course, they suffer from what we call ontological despair. What does ontological despair mean? Exactly. Exactly, because ontological means what is. Yeah, to be here. They cannot understand what it means to be here, what it means to be alive. So they suffer from ontological, and most people suffer from ontological despair. Even my cats, when I look at them, I look in their eye, and no, I can see ontological despair. I feed them, I cuddle with them, I talk to them, they listen to Sanskrit, they're completely well taken care of. But they look at me like, but who am I really? You see? So we give them a blessing that at least in the next lifetime they become human beings. So then they can inquire. The animal cannot inquire. And the animal doesn't get karma. The cats don't get any karma. They can eat all kinds of cat food. It doesn't have to be vegan chips. They can. But I get karma by even the slightest wrong movement. So they're very fortunate. And what we can learn from them, I told you, every morning they wake me up. I don't want to say what time, but within 5 minutes of actually 5 o'clock, they put a paw on me. Say, it's 5 minutes to 5. Oh, it's 3 minutes past 5. Literally within 5, 6, or 8 minutes every day. So they don't have a clock. I don't have an alarm. The only time I use an alarm if I travel to India and I need to catch a plane. Then I don't trust my instinct or my cat. Oh my, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Instinct, I mean super soul. Instinct. Yeah. So beautiful. So this Srimad Bhagavatam is opening, is completely unpacking, and the way Prabhupada unpacks it is amazing. Like some of the things, of course, not everybody believes in underlining, but I underlined something that I underlined probably 10 years ago. Uh, Let me read what I underlined from the purport. So it says, this surrendering process is the remedial measure for getting relief from the bewildering waves of the illusory energy. The surrendering process is completed by the influence of association. Now this is so important. Like I joined the movement 48, coming up 50 years ago. And it's association that keeps us together. It's association that enlightens us. Like I told you in the very beginning, I was already aware of concept like the fourth dimension. And I was meditating. I was a vegetarian. I was celibate, if you want to say celibate. We followed. We didn't drink, we didn't smoke. We already followed the principles. So when we came, we were very happy to hear that some of those, you can say, practices that had guided us to live a pure life were completely evaluated here, and we're giving all the psychology of it, and so we could understand from the very beginning that actually this, we're back home, back to God. That I can understand the philosophy. I don't have to ask too many questions, although I did ask many questions because I came from a scholarly background. We have thesis, and then you have an antithesis. You have to have an antithesis. I say, how do you know Krishna is God? And if devotees knew, devotees would get irritated with me. You have to believe Prabhupada says Krishna is God. And I would say, that's fine, but why don't you tell me how you understand that Krishna is God? You see? And then you have the synthesis. So this is very important. This is why also we focus on bhakti yoga, but we don't neglect jnana. If you completely neglect jnana, then we only read about 16 verses of the Gita, Sarvadharma Pritya, only that and whatever comes later. And we can ignore the rest? No. The whole has to be taken into the context. So we're very fortunate to understand these things. So it said that I have to see a note on here, Takrita kirtan by the reaction of matter, of illusion. One undergoes illusion by the reaction of matter. Because how does matter act upon us? Matter covers. When you think of matter, like the highest concentration of matter is earth. And four elements come together, it's called the fifth element. Don't think the earth is five elements, then it would have been the sixth. The earth is four elements coming together and makes the fifth. So the earth is covering us. We are bewildered by the earth. So we have to undo the coverings. I was mentioning it to one of my people yesterday. I was saying, he said koshas. Kosha means like a bandage or a wrap or a cloth or a kanchika. And all of these, it begins with anamaya. You know, these mayas, anamaya, manamaya, all the different mayas are the kanchika that covers. I think on my mind. I think on my body. I might even think I'm intelligence, but I am higher than that. I'm consciousness. And that is the point. So we have to analyze this sequence and come up to the top. You know, that's why you have that famous, I guess it's a Buddhist kind of sutra, but I was reciting it long before I came. Om Mani Padme Hum. So Padma, of course, or Padme means in the lotus, and Mani means the jewel. So within the lotus, there is the jewel. Now, in the material way, we often think this material world is like the lotus. And actually, it is like the lotus, but the emphasis is on panka. What does panka mean? Mud. The lotus is called panka ja. Ja means to be born. The lotus is called mud born. So in this material world, we're not really aware of the lotus. We're just aware of the mud. And we celebrate, quote unquote, the lotus. So, but unless you discover what is the lotus and enter within money means jewel, you will not know. You see? So all of these things, you know, helped me to enter into actually ISKCON association. Because everything made sense, and the things that didn't make sense, because some things obviously didn't make sense, that slowly they started resonating, and I could understand how everything worked very, very beautifully, and how fortunate I was to. And of course, I told you my main attraction long before I joined was the chanting of the devotees that I heard at that conference. It's amazing, just the mantra, hearing the mantra, and especially when it's not uttered with ego. I was just reading by chance, quote by Prabhupada this morning. He says, we don't need to be musicians to have kirtan. He says, we have kartals, we have madanga. He didn't mention harmonium, of course. But he says, we don't need to be great musicians. We need to just play, you know, tala, rhythm, etc. But it doesn't mean we cannot use it. It's very beautiful. But if you do kirtan with ego, who wants to listen to you? And yet so many people want to listen to you. Say, wow, I wish I could do like you. Maybe I'll upgrade myself. But this is all wrong because it keeps you in this world of matter. To rise above it, we give up this ahankar and we surrender to aham. Although sometimes we misunderstand what is aham. We think aham is ego. No, aham is the real self, aham brahmasmi, and ahankar is the false self. And they're very close. That one is covered by matter and the other one is covered by spirit, if you wish. Because in the spiritual world also, we mentioned many times, in glow, nobody knows that Krishna is God. Are you kidding me? Then how can you play with God? How can you How can you fault find him? How can you flirt with him? How can you find him? So there's no concept of God. Only occasionally it's revealed to Mother Yashoda. She looks in his mouth. And quickly she closes it, otherwise she won't be able to feed him and chastise him and bathe him and do all this stuff. You think, oh, this is God. God doesn't need a bath. So, what time is it now? Cannot be better. Yeah, 10 days. So, we are very fortunate read is also always try to see the verses in context, like the last one, Purusha Purna, and then the next one where Prabhupada says, I just want to read the English, the material miseries of the living entity which are superfluous to him, superfluous, can be directly mitigated by the linking process